And spitballs.
Are you ready? All rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Laws of 1975 of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting of the South River Board of Education was provided in the following manner. October 2nd, 2019, the notice was faxed, mailed to the following newspapers: Home News Tribune, Sentinel. On October 2nd, 2019, the notice was delivered to the office of the South River Borough Clerk and posted at the Board of Education Administration Building. On October 2nd, 2019, the notice was posted at the South River Borough Clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Bazak?
Here.
Mrs. Beck?
Here.
Mr. Budson?
Here.
Mrs. Bush?
Here.
Mrs. Lowe?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen?
Here.
Mr. Rosanno?
Here.
Mr. Rashatar?
Here.
Mrs. Urbanik?
Here.
Ms. Cassiano?
Ms. Cassiano has been excused for this evening. Board members, just going to have a little bit of a change in the agenda from what you see in front of you. We are going to go to the Apple of My Eye contest winners on your page 2 under Superintendent of Schools. At this time, I would like to invite Shanetta Turner-Smith to come forward and present the awards.
Thank you and good evening to all the board members.
Good evening, Shanetta.
Good evening. As well. Just to give a little history, the Apple of My Eye contest, we've been doing this is our 5th year since our inception. And what it is that the primary and elementary school, there's a contest for the class who has the most apples. And the apples are an apple applique that are $1 a piece. And every parent can buy as many as they want to and address to their child and leave it for them the next morning to look at. So the more apples that each class has, the most apples, if they have the most apples, then they are the winner of the contest. But what we did this year, which was extra special, we had some of the public come up and present us with money so that all the children would have at least one apple to participate in the results of the class. So we're very happy to have that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the winners at the primary school. If I could have Ms. Baldessari's class come forward, please. And this is our preschool class. Or you can have you all come here and stand next to your teacher. So in addition to you, little apple on it, we'd like to also invite you to an ice cream party, which we'll have to get approval from Mr. Cooley at a later date. But we thank you for your participation and congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome. I don't think Mrs. Encione is here. Does she have any students that are here? No? Okay. So Mrs. Encione was the winner at the elementary school. She did tell me that she could not make it, but she wasn't sure if any of her students would be here. So they are not, but congratulations to them, and they will receive a plaque as well to put into their classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanetta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, if people that won the awards are welcome to stay. If not, we know you have other things to do. You have little ones to take care of. Thank you for coming, and congratulations. All right, continuing on with the board agenda, we have minutes from our June 27th, 2019, July 25th, 2019, August 22nd, 2019, September 16th, 2019, September 23rd, 2019, and September 26th, 2019. Board members, your pleasure on the minutes.
Move the minutes.
Motion by
Second.
Vice President Rosano, second by Mr. Nielsen. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. We now have our use of facilities, Mr.
We
Kokoska.
still have the same 12 items on the agenda as of Tuesday.
Board members, your pleasure on the use of facilities.
Move the use of facilities in accordance with board policies.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen, second by Ms. Beck. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, we will now have the financial report. Ms. Lau.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vanek. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby certifies that it is in receipt of the financial report, which indicates that no major account has been overexpended and that sufficient funds are available to meet the district's financial obligation for the remainder of the fiscal year. The Finance Committee recommends that the reports of the Board Secretary and the Treasurer of School Monies for August 2019 be approved, and I so move.
Motion by Ms. Lell, second by Vice President Rosano. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this time, the board is going to open up the meeting to the reception of visitors. At this particular time, you may address items that are on the agenda only. There will be another public meeting, another public portion at the end of this meeting or any other matters that you wish to discuss. So if there is anyone from the public wishing to come forward at this time, first call, second call, third call. Move to close the public portion. And we will now move on to the Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Zurcher.
Thank you, Mr. Urbanek. In my superintendent's report today, I'd like to begin by talking about our high school focus group. This is a group of students who I meet with on a regular basis. They are great at providing me with feedback about what goes on in their school day. They like to tell me everything about what they think is going right for them, and also what are some areas that we could think about improving or making better for their daily school life. So I met with our group for the first time this year. They shared, it was homecoming. Homecoming was coming up, so they had a lot to share about homecoming, which ended up being such a great and wonderful event. They were getting excited about going to the homecoming dance. So they shared a lot about just in general activities that they have an opportunity to participate in their school, and that was definitely a pro for them. And they pointed out that they're noticing so many more opportunities, and that they love the fact that they can continue to be involved. They shared about their Chromebook devices. They are very excited to have the Chromebook devices. They say that they do everything from work during the school day, of course, with them, but also at home, and some of them even do some work on the bus on the way to and from sports events and things of that nature. So they're really making the most out of those devices, and definitely benefiting from having those. They shared some information about their schedules this year, about the scheduling process. We took down some notes on those. We took down some notes in terms of the timeline that they would like to see for receiving their schedule, for having enough time to make changes to their schedule. So they were very honest, and we took down all of that information for feedback as we move forward and plan for the upcoming year. They talked about parking. Our seniors talked about how far they have to park and how far they have to walk, and how early they have to come to school in order to get a parking spot. So that was a big topic of conversation for them and important to them. They talked about the reduced lunch. They like the fact that there are a lot less kids in the lunch period. They get through that lunch line much quicker. So they identified a lot of pros to that change, but also a con, which for the seniors, again, they feel like it's not enough time to go out to lunch. But I said, you don't come to school to go out to lunch. You come to school to learn. But that was definitely a con from their perspective. So again, they're very honest with their feedback. We take it all into consideration, and they are really the voice that should be the strongest in guiding what we do for their own learning experience. So great opportunity. We'll meet again in December. Ram Runway, we placed this item on the agenda in our ERAM agenda. The Ram Runway is think of like a large closet that we are building here at the high school, where we will be able to provide clothing for families, for students in pre-K all the way to 12. So far we have received some great donations from Target, from Kohl's. They've donated hangers, racks. So we're working on getting sort of the foundational pieces of that room together. We have a club at the high school that is helping us run that program. They are working also with our life skills students who are helping organize a lot of the materials and a lot of what's going to come in. So we're not collecting clothing or shoes at this time, but just be on the lookout. Once we do, we'll definitely notify families. At this time, we are collecting hangers, laundry detergent, laundry baskets. So anything like that that you have that you're willing to donate can be dropped off to the high school. Let's see. Today, I will also turn part of my report over to Mr. Dorso, who's going to be presenting our HIB grade report for 2017-18, as well as our school self-assessment report from school year 18-19. And then after that, we will have Dr. Trevisano, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, present our data analysis, looking at our assessment scores for school year 18-19, which will then be posted on our district website. And so concludes my superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Dorso first.
Okay, I just want to ask if the board members have any questions on the superintendent's report. And can we have a motion to accept the superintendent's report?
Nielsen.
Bush. Roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yes, now let's have the presentations. Okay, thank you.
If it's okay, Dr. Trevisano and I are going to switch, and we kind of set up already, and he's all set up for.
That is fine. No problem.
And then it's gonna be
It is
here.
going to be displayed up
Okay.
there. So we have to, yeah, what's the one? Would you like to? He's going to project it.
Yeah.
Kevin, take your microphone. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not rude.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to say that I'm happy to be here this year without crutches. It makes it a little bit easier to get in and out of the room, so, you know, that's always a benefit. So, I'll start off very briefly with some background information. Much of this is not new. We have the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments. That's what the test last year was changed to from PARC. Acronym is still 5 letters, as the state continues to use acronyms. Much of the information contained within the 2 assessments are very similar, other than addressing the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, which were changed in 2015, and they waited on changing the exam to, they allowed a transition time between changing the exam. As part of this presentation, I just want to talk briefly about the graduation requirements. As you know, last year there was a change in graduation requirements for high school students, and the state has continued that. So our sophomores, juniors, and seniors are still going to be asked to pass the English 10 exam and the Algebra 1 exam, and if they don't, the battery of other assessments is still available to them. There is no information about the current freshmen. The legislation that came out last year due to a court case allowed for the menu of assessments for the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and the State Board of Education is still currently considering what we're going to do for the test requirement for the freshmen. Once that information is received, I will post it on the district website so everybody has access to it. I'm sure it will become public very soon. The NJSLA end of course science testing was again a little bit different last year. Traditionally, it was students in grade 4, 8, and biology. They changed it to make it a comprehensive test in grades 5, 8, and 11. There is no more end-of-course biology assessment, and the science assessment in the high school is comprehensive, taking into account standards in biology or earth science standards, physical science standards, and life science standards. So the levels of proficiency is exactly the same as what Park was. The assessment has changed, but the levels of proficiency are still the same. Passing score they still talk about as a 750. The reason it says TBD between a 4 and a 5 is because that is subject to the actual assessment itself. So a grade 3 English score that would move to exceeding standards is significantly different than a grade 8 math score or a grade 7 English score as well. SAT scores still range from 200 to 800 in both verbal and math, and your AP scores still are from 1 through 5. Students have the potential to earn college credits with whatever institution they're attending. If they receive a 4 or 5, if they receive a 3, there's a potential to waive prerequisite courses. So none of that's changed. It's all exactly the same as what it's always been. So here's our overall summary by school. This is what our achievement data by the different levels of expectations. On the right, you'll notice percent of passing or percent, which would be level 4 and above, is listed over there. Again, I do have to emphasize, this was the first year of the NJSLA. Although similar to Park, the styles of questionings were slightly different, the expectations were different, the standards were different. So that did result, or that did have an effect on some of our performance. Once again, this entire presentation will be available publicly. Tomorrow morning I will have it posted on the curriculum website. So any information you either want to revisit or don't necessarily see will be available publicly tomorrow. So South River versus the state average, our results are in blue, the state average is in black. One note was that in grade 11, the governor was able to eliminate testing for all grade 11 students last year. So therefore, we don't have any results for language arts for grade 11 students. Language arts is a grade level based test, so all students in each of the grades would take those tests, and again, here's our achievement data as compared to the state numbers. In some cases, we're close. In some cases, we are a little far behind. Okay, again, our assessment in math, this becomes a little bit different. I want to explain a couple parts of this slide here. The grade 8 math assessment would be the results of our students who are not taking Algebra 1. So our Algebra 1 students have been extracted from grade 8, as they would be in most districts that offer Algebra 1 for 8th grade students, and that will be combined with our Algebra 1 numbers. In mathematics, it's grade level assessments through grade 7, and then it's based on the course that you take. So theoretically, our geometry numbers would be representative of freshmen through juniors. Our Algebra 2 numbers, which are represented here, are purely sophomores. And I want to emphasize that those are only sophomores because, again, students grade 11 did not test last year. Our demographic breakdown, I know there's a lot of information here, so instead of necessarily going through it line by line by line, again, this will be available for you so you can see all of the different data and spend a little bit of time on it. This is broken down by demographic group, by ethnicity, by gender, free and reduced, 504 students, limited English proficient students, special education and general education students. Again, that's their achievement levels district-wide in the English language arts realm. Okay, followed by math. Here's our math assessment. Again, it's district-wide, so these would be the results of students 3 through theoretically 12, if any 11th to 12th graders took it. Again, broken down demographically by ethnicity, by gender, by free and reduced, 504 students, limited English proficient, special education students, and general education students as well. A note about special education students, these would be students who would be eligible to take the standardized assessments with modifications and adaptations per their IEPs. I'll get to something else a little bit later with regard to some of our more intensive special education students. So this slide, I thought this was kind of funny, if you would, for reporting data. Our science end-of-course assessments in 2018, we got no data. It was the first year of doing the SLA science assessment, and the state decided to put out there that we want you to take the test, but we're not going to tell you how you did. This is going to be a benchmarking for us to determine how the test was. Said, okay, we'll get data the next year. Well, it's currently October 17th, and we still don't have our results back from the state on the assessments. Now, once I do receive that data, I will update this slide on the website, and I'll notify the board as well once this is done, so we can see where our achievement data is as compared to the state. There are no benchmarks yet because, again, it is a new test. Our ACT, SAT, composite, and AP data is represented here for you. Again, ACT is listed on top. We don't have the state average for 2019 yet. It has not been calculated because 2019 is not over. We operate on an academic year. They operate on a calendar year. So we won't have that aggregate data until March or April of 2020. Same thing for the SAT main score based on the state. Again, once we get that information, I will represent and update that on the website as well. Our AP exams are represented here, and what you will notice actually is there it is. We did actually increase our percent of students that did receive a 3 or higher on the AP exam. Okay, our AP mean scores by course, I broke this out by every course we offer. What I do want to point out in this particular course is one change that we did make. It's over here on the right-hand side. It's our world history course. We had no students take the world history course because historically what we were finding was the world history AP was traditionally given to freshmen. And not all of our freshmen were necessarily taking it or enrolling in it. And those freshmen who didn't necessarily perform that well, we started discussing with them why they didn't. And the content was one thing, but it was also the literary expectations. So we decided to take the world history and still offer world history as an AP course. However, we're offering it to more of our upperclassmen as well. So it is an option for students that came into the high school, took world history as a freshman, US, they can still take AP, or earn the AP world credits. We have that ability. Again, our performance compared 18-19 across the board. The other one I'll point out to you is the English literature course right here. The English literature course was not necessarily taken last year because we started our English language and composition course. So the students that took the English language course did not have any grades in 2018. However, those are the students who took the course here. This year, I'm happy to say that we actually have students enrolled in both courses and are anticipating students taking the AP test in both literacy courses. Access for ELLs, I wanted to include this one as well, and then I'll explain that chart over there, which took me a couple of days to figure out how to interpret it. The Access for ELLs is our test to measure English language proficiency for our non-English speaking students. The test has been broken into clusters, so it's not grade level per se as a grade 1, 2, and 3. There's actually clusters, so you have a 2-3 cluster, a 4-5 cluster, 6-8, 9, 12. Now what the table over here refers to is actually, the way you have to read this is oral language is assessed 50% using listening skills and 50% using speaking skills. So that's how we would read this table. Literacy is assessed through reading and writing. And then comprehension is the one that's weighted slightly differently. So reading comprehension is more so in the reading as compared to the listening. And then you'll see the weighted averages for the overall access score. It's calculated in raw points, but then the composite score points are put out. We use a composite score points, which would be anywhere from a 1.0 to, I've seen as high as 6 and 7. The state changed the exit requirements for access for ELL students. So as of the current year under ESSA, students have to achieve a 4.5 on the access to be eligible to exit ESL classes. Our district data is represented here. The access is recognized using 6 different levels of achievement, 1 through 6. We really want to look at the 4, 5, and the 6 as our students that are progressing appropriately towards acquisition of English. So this is where we're reading it. Looking at this, our overall score down here, this would be the numbers of students that would be in each of the categories. So I mentioned before a little bit on our more severely classified special ed students. They would take the DLM, the Dynamic Learning Map, as their assessment of knowledge. Now, the Dynamic Learning Map is the Dynamic Learning Map uses essential elements, and essentially what the essential elements refer to are the standards in more meaningful and attainable targets. DLM is assessed in 4 levels: emerging, approaching, at target, and advanced. And our results from last year are the following. We had students in grades 4, 5, 7, and 8 take the DLM in each of these content areas. And then you'll note on the right-hand side the percent of students that were at target or advanced. These students will be progressing through, and these are our more cognitively impaired students. Now, a few takeaways as we look at this presentation. There are a few things that we wanted to point out to you, and there's absolutely no denying this discrepancy between district and state averages regarding students exceeding expectations on our standardized testing. Absolutely clear. The one thing I did point out here is that although there's an increase in the number of AP exams taken, there's a decline in the number of test takers, which is kind of unique. And realistically, what that means is we have less students taking more exams. So we have a good number of kids that are taking we have a good number of kids that are taking AP exams, but you'll have the same student taking 4 and 5 exams. And actually, last year we had one student who took 8 exams, including exams that courses we didn't offer here. And we were happy to say he achieved a 4 or 5 in every one of them, which was incredible. Testing results in grade 8, grade 7 math, and in Algebra 2 were exceeded the state average, which we were very happy about. Algebra 1 and geometry are far below the state average. It's an area that we're going to be targeting and addressing. Our grade 10 testing for language arts is comparable to the grade 10 testing across the state. English and language arts testing at the elementary school does fall below the state average. I'll address that in a second. And then the one other highlight that's not represented on this PowerPoint here is that during the 2018-19 school year, all graduates attained the testing requirement required by the state of New Jersey. We didn't have to submit any portfolio assessments for an alternate assessment for any student here. So that was really, we were proud of our students for the work they did on that.
One of the things too, if I can reinforce, we do know and we've had some concerns at the elementary level, and that is one of the reasons why last year we budgeted for and got a new literacy program at that level. Because if you remember, our resources were significantly outdated. So we did that for language arts last year, and this year Joe shared with the instruction committee that we are looking at a math program for the 2021 school year. It will take us all year to select the right one, and then we'll implement that in 2021 if our budget allows us to do so.
And that brings me to the next slide here. So we're continuing to use very, very targeted literacy intervention programs in our grades 1 through 8, as well as a targeted intervention program moving with math in our grades 1 through 8, as well as Algebra 1. We're expanded foundations to grade 2. What that means now is our grade 2 students, this will be the 3rd year of their exposure to foundations. So we are curious to see how this affects them or affects their literacy moving forward. We still use iReady as our diagnostic and instructional tools. It does provide resources, but what it also provides for us is intervention tools and materials that teachers, our ASI teachers, our special education teachers can use to assist their students in attaining proficiency. We are doing targeted professional development. We've actually taken a stand now to look at professional development from the departmental level and listen to what they think they want, and they're sharing information with me. We're providing that professional development as we move ahead. We've now partnered with another district that offers SIOP training, sheltered instruction, observation protocol for our ESL students. This is training for our gen ed teachers to help our English as a second language students in their classroom. We've partnered with them. We currently have 10 teachers being trained. It's a 15-hour training, usually over 3 days. In addition to, I'm still in negotiations with them to offer a second training to 15 to 16 teachers in the spring. So we'll have a good number of teachers, and then continue that training as the years progress. We're looking at an exploration of multiple resources to support our English language learners for the current year, as well as moving forward. Mr. Dorso brought in the Read 180 program as an intervention program for middle school for very specific special education students. That's started this year, as a matter of fact. We're really looking at data. We talked about our principals are looking at data, our teacher leaders are looking at data. We're asking our teachers to look at data consistently to not only assess what's happening in the classroom and the performance of their students, but where they should go with it. As Ms. Zurcher mentioned, we did get the implementation of a new literacy series this year, and we're looking at a math series for next year. Our math series is outdated, as well as our literacy series was outdated. So that's going to take a little bit of time to implement, standards-based, and see some results from it. Our district assessment schedule, I consolidated it from the 3-page document we have. It's here. You'll be able to have access to this, again, online. It's all the standardized assessments, as well as our iReady assessments that we will be giving throughout the year. And then finally, questions? Yeah.
The statistics from Algebra 1, is that including advanced math for middle school or just high school?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. When the state reports Algebra 1 scores, they report it as one unified. So it includes our 8th grade, our 9th grade, potentially 10th grade repeat students. We do get some students that transfer in from other schools that may come in as a sophomore that have no math credits. So we potentially will have some sophomores that will be enrolled in Algebra 1 as well. So that performance level is there as well. Okay?
Joe, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know if we have any AP scholars?
As far as I know, we don't at this point.
Okay.
It's something that we can look at. We're looking at.
Okay.
Else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice
Joe.
stuff,
Very
sir.
well presented.
All right, so basically, every year we have to present out on our HIB grades. This PowerPoint is actually a combination of 2 different elements. The first is the 18-19 recent self-assessment that we did for last school year. And then we'll also have to officially report out on the 17-18 official grade that the district received. An overview of the process, basically it's a mandated activity that the district has to report on the process and what the self-assessment entails, which is basically each school safety and school climate team rating going through a rubric based on 0, 1, 2, or 3. These are the 8 different areas of the reporting. And this is how it's scored. So basically what you'll see when we go through the report is that each indicator that we have, we met, at least met requirement, most exceeded requirements. This is the official data that we got back from the state. So this is our official grade. Our official grade is a 73. That basically accounts for the high school score of 74, the middle school score of 76, the elementary score is 72, and 71 for the primary school, and then the 73 is just the average of those scores. And if you just go across, you can see the areas that we were either usually just 1 point from meeting the exceeding standard. based on our recent self-assessment for this year, these are our scores. We'll have to report these to the state after this board meeting. We'll officially submit this data. And as you can see, we increased. I have a slide at the end just to demonstrate the growth comparing previous years. Just so you know, out of the 8 indicators, there's actually, out of the 8 core areas, there's actually 26 indicators. So primary school and elementary school received a exceeding mark in 25 of the 26 indicators, and middle school, high school received an exceeding mark in 24 of the 26 indicators. The one element that's noteworthy is where you see the 14 highlighted. In each of our buildings, that's an area that we're going to target. We identified that we didn't meet the exceeding category there because although our staff received the 2 hours of HIP training, we think we need to do a better job of conveying exactly what our district policy is compared to the actual GCN training. So make sure there's no disconnect between the two. For core element number 2 for the high school, they received a met requirement there rather than exceeding because it was determined that we need to do a better job of communicating the policy to students. For the middle school, they received, let me see there, I think it was core element number 1, and we determined that that was not exceeding because we want to do a better job of analyzing the data. So basically all schools, for the most part, received exceeding marks in all required areas. We report accurately. We have effective programs offered to students and ample opportunities to reflect upon our current programs. Based on the areas that we didn't get exceeding, this is what we think we'll need to do just to receive exceeding in those specific areas. So GCN training, we want to make sure it's consistent with what we're doing district-wide and that everybody, all staff are aware of those differences. And then increase our data collection and data analysis. This is just the side-by-side compared to the 17-18 school year and 18-19. And that's it. Do we have any questions?
What do you, there's some, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So what do you account the better scores 18-19 as opposed to 17?
I think in large part, to be honest with you, when we went through and kind of analyzed the rubric, I would kind of say that we're probably closer to the 18-19 marks that we scored ourselves this year, even in 17-18. When I went through and met with the school climate teams and school counselors that run the school climate teams, that was the assessment that there was some areas that we probably could have graded ourselves a little higher during 17-18, and then also just more district-wide emphasis on social emotional learning programs, and just more of a focus district-wide on coming together as a community and district-wide K through 12 to review current programs.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Liz, how do you X out of this?
Escape.
Oh,
It's like a little on a delay, Tony, so just,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Trevisano and Mr. Dorso. So that leaves us, our next item is the consent resolution. Just want to ask the board if there are any items that they need to be pulled from any of the committees to be read separately. Seeing none.
Telesco?
The South River Board of Education, by means of a consent resolution, adopt various resolutions of a routine and non-controversial nature at one time. And whereas the below listed resolutions are hereby adopted by said Board of Education in whole as if the same were individually acted upon. Under the Superintendent's Report, items 2 and 3. Under Building and Grounds, item 1. Under Finance, items 1 through 17. Under Instructions, items 1 through 4. Policy and Legislation, items 1 and 2. Human Resources, items 1 through 15. And Safety and Risk, 1 through 6.
Thank you. Roll call? Oh, sorry,
Nielsen.
yeah, we need a
Okay.
motion first. Bush.
Got Mrs.
Motion by
Bush.
Ms. Bush,
Nielsen.
second by Mr. Nielsen.
Any questions?
Now we'll have the roll call,
Any questions?
if there are no questions.
Mr. Bazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Budson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. Lell?
Yes.
Mr. Nielsen?
Yes.
Mr. Rosanno?
Yes.
Mr. Ashatar?
Yes.
Mrs. Urbanek?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We will now go through the committee reports, starting with Mr. Budson with our athletics and extracurricular.
There is nothing on the agenda, but the football team's 3-3, and they'll play Friday in Highland Park. The soccer team is 10-6 as of Monday. They're in a county tournament, state tournament. The girls' soccer team, I believe now is 13-1 for winning today, and are moving along in the GMC tournament. It's the first year of varsity volleyball, and we're struggling at 0-12.
They did win one.
They did win.
They did win.
Oh, well.
All right.
They did.
All right.
I don't remember.
I wasn't there.
And when the cross-country team was, boys is 2-4, and the girls are 0-2-3. And the tennis team is 6-6. That's all I have.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds, Ms. Beck?
Nothing more on the agenda, but everybody got the report from the superintendent's report for building and grounds. They're doing a lot of repairs, maintenance, all on their own. They're even getting ready, say this for the winter, but they're getting ready now, so all the equipment's waiting for no snow. And we got, like we were talking about Rams Runway, they're working on that, and many other little projects. So it includes my report.
Thank you. Finance, Ms. Lowe?
Thank you. We have 2 new items since our meeting the other evening. Item number 16, approved contract Educational Travel Tours, Inc. Field Trip Service Provider 2019-2020 school year. And number 17, approve accept 2019-20 school year tuition placements Perth Amboy Board of Education.
Thank you. Instruction, Vice President Rosanno?
Thank you, Madam President. There's nothing new since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. And under negotiations, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have anything outstanding. However, we will be going into closed session this evening for that particular item. Mr. Parton, do you have anything to add?
Yes, as you said, we're quiet on actual negotiations, but we're having some growing pains and working with the SREA to make sure everybody's living up to our recently settled contract.
Thank you. Under policy and legislation, Ms. Bush.
Nothing new since Tuesday evening's meeting, but just want to restate that we are going to have a policy meeting soon. Ms. Zercher, I think it's towards the end of November. You sent the email out? Correct. So we will be meeting. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Human Resources, Mr. Nielsen.
Thank you, Madam President. We have 4 new items tonight. Approve appoint Joanna Palmigiano, high school English as a second language teacher for the 2019-2020 school year. 3, approve resignation Rivka Zachariah, school psychologist. 14, approve medical leave employee number 4547. 15, approve appoint additional substitutes 2019-2020 school year. And that'll be it.
Thank you. Safety and Risk Management, Mr. Basak.
Thank you, Mr. Urbanek. There is nothing new since Tuesday evening.
Okay. Thank you. And under School Community Relations, Mr. Rashatar.
When Ms. Napolitano gets back, we'll be scheduling a meeting to discuss the process of putting things out to the public, press releases or whatever, however we're gonna do it, as per our discussion on Tuesday.
Good, thank you. Our School Board Borough Council Liaison Committee Representative, Mr. Nielsen.
We are actually meeting after tonight's meeting, so I'll have something for November, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beck, PTA Liaison?
This afternoon, we actually had a superintendent, PTA president roundtable. A lot of things were discussed, things are going well. The press releases were talked about then, encouraging all of the PTA presidents to submit their fundraisers that route, whether it's any kind of a press release, whether it goes on TV 35, make sure it gets into E-Rams, which I think everybody's seen them all in there, like the discount card that primary school's doing, which, by the way, really works. Some of them you just have to say you have it. They don't even want to see it. And 10% when you're getting on food is great.
Absolutely.
Their next meetings, primary school is on October 29th at 6:45. Elementary school is November 14th at 6 o'clock. And middle school is at October 30th at 6:30. And high school will be at the PTA Founders Day in February. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. South River Public Library Liaison, Mr. Budzen.
Nothing to report this month.
Okay, thank you. And our South River Foundation for Educational Excellence, Mr.
The
Washita.
Foundation met on Tuesday. I haven't had a chance yet, or I haven't heard from Shanetta Smith, the president, as to what progress there is. I do know that there's at least one new member in the foundation. So I will, hopefully we'll have something. I definitely will have something for November.
Great, thank you. Mr. Parton, attorney's report?
We have just some brief things to cover in executive session, but nothing for right now.
Thank you. Ms. Cassiano is not here. She's been excused for our student board representatives report. Is there any old or new business to come before the board?
Madam President, I just want to
Yes.
point out that I attended homecoming as an alumnus of South River High School. Very proud to be an alumnus of South River High School. Class of 19, a long time ago. 66. The parade was great. The ceremony for King and Queen and the court was great. The marching band was great. The game was great. We won 26-0, I think it was, wasn't it?
26 to
26 to nothing.
Color.
And the color guard performed for the first time.
Yes. Well,
And they
I'm at homecoming.
they were terrific. They were absolutely terrific. And now, who's the advisor for the color guard?
Jamie Lynch. Yes.
Ms. Lynch, congratulations on a great job. And again, to all the staff that has anything to do with this, the class advisors, the parents who gave up their driveways to build the floats, and so on and so forth, a real nice community event. And it's one thing, it's a tradition in South River. We have new neighbors next door to our house, and they couldn't believe that it was such a big deal here. They loved it. They thought it was great, because they have kids in the school system. And they thought it was wonderful. So I just want to congratulate everybody and thank everybody who had anything to do with it for a great job. That's it. Ms. Perkin, yes. Miss South River, I can't forget her.
I just have to say that, I don't know if you guys noticed, I noticed because my daughter's in color guard, right? So the freshman princess, or whatever we're calling her, right? Literally ran from color guard, stripped down, and like she was, I've never seen a kid move so fast. She had her dress
I
on
saw that. I was
underneath. Ava
watching.
was amazing, man.
Yeah,
I
I
had
saw
to
that.
tell her mom that, yeah. So,
Yeah, so they participate in
In
lot
everything,
of, yeah,
yep.
in a lot of events. Yes, I saw her leave the field.
yes, run, and the next thing you know, she was in heels and a dress.
Yes.
They're amazing. They are.
So-
Okay, is there any other old or new business? Seeing none, we will move on to payment of bills. Ms. Lowe.
The Finance Committee recommends that all bills presented, having been certified by the School Business Administrator Board Secretary, be paid as listed, and I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Lowe,
Second.
second by Vice President Rosano. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, the board will open up the meeting to any members of the public to address any concerns or comments that you have for the board. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address, and please keep your comments to a 10-minute time limit.
Trish Rosano, 3 Birchwood Place. We came here tonight to say thank you to the board president, Ms. Sydney Urbanek. She took the time to listen to our concerns regarding the issues we had with the superintendent, the director of special services, and the supervisor of special services, and took action to help us. Although we did not yet come to a resolution, I finally feel us having the confidence back in the district that we haven't had since the director of special services has been hired. I look forward to working together to solve righting the wrongs we have experienced with the director and the supervisor of special services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosano. I'm quite taken aback by that. I was not expecting that, but what I did was nothing short of what any other board member here would have done had they met you. We are here to help you. As I spoke to you, I told you we work for you. We do. And
Yes, okay.
yeah.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. Like I said, you put the confidence back that I have completely lost. So I look forward to moving forward, but there's a lot that needs to be done, a lot of change, there's a lot of things.
Well, that's a great start, and that's great to hear, and it is truly appreciated by the whole board when people do come and thank, the board members, every single one of us. And I think we have one of the best boards here, and thank you very much for expressing those sentiments.
Thank you, really.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find working with the superintendent and the other staff members up here, we'll get you resolution. I think you will. Okay, any other members from the public wishing to come forward? Seeing none, we'll move to close the public portion. And at this time, the board will be going into closed session and resolve that pursuant to Section 7 and 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, the following subjects be discussed at a session of the Board of Education closed to the public, and that is negotiations. It is presently anticipated that the items to be discussed in closed session can be disclosed to the public when resolved. Do I have a motion?
Nielsen.
Bush. Motion by Mr. Nielsen, second by Ms. Bush. Roll call? Roll call?
Mr. Bezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bush?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Nielsen?
Yes.
Mr. Rosanna?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Vanek?
Yes.
Liz? Please.
Yes.